Thanks for tuning into the Milwaukee Business Journal podcast. I'm reporter Nick Williams. Joining us today is Genesis10 CEO Harley Lippman and also Dev10 Client Director Jennifer Turnquist. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
And for those who don't know what Dev10 is, Harley and Jennifer, could you please explain to our listeners what this program is?
Jennifer, go ahead.
Sure. So, Nick, Dev10 is a program that we created specifically to address the talent shortages in IT. As we all know, the supply and demand issues make it very difficult for employers to fill open technical positions. So what we're doing is we're taking a different approach, non-traditional approach, by identifying candidates that maybe didn't come from those traditional paths, putting them through a very rigorous selection process that produces a really high quality, well-rounded individual, and then putting them through specific training, depending on what the technology is, deploying them with our clients and giving them ongoing coaching and mentoring. So we're truly creating new talent that companies wouldn't find on their own because they didn't exist prior to our program.
So, Harley, what made Milwaukee an ideal location for the training program?
Well, Milwaukee is a major tech hub. Milwaukee spends $9 million on technology and has 75,000 people working in technology-related areas. So Milwaukee is an important place on the map of the United States to have a place where we can grow our Dev10 operation. And we've had a presence, we've had an office, and we've been doing business in Milwaukee ever since we started as a company 20 years ago. So we've always felt that the Milwaukee office and the Milwaukee location and the clients here were interested in IT talent, and especially in getting new talent, as you heard from Jennifer. And the context of that is, after the Great Recession, training was basically eliminated across the country. So that's partly what created this void, or this gap, if you will, to train young talent out of college. And now companies are looking for this, and they're finding that they can't find people with Java and a year experience, or people with Python and 2 years experience. It's just few and far between. So we're training these people for companies to be able to fill that gap.
When we talk about the training during the recession, and then we talk about demand during the pandemic, right? We saw how much digital transformation was accelerated during the pandemic. So from your perspective, Jennifer and Harley, how has the pandemic increased demand for these type of tech professionals?
Well, technology had to take over. Technology helped save the country by being able to improve automation. Take a look at Amazon as just one example, how they stepped in and with accelerated, efficient, and effective automation was able to get products out to people overnight, which was desperately needed across the country, to the point that through the pandemic, the need for just, let's say, software developers rose by over 3%. It didn't decline, it increased.
And just today or yesterday, I believe, U.S. News and World released their top jobs to have in 2021. And software developer was number 2. Last year, it was number 1. And I believe the year before that, it was number 1. So it seems like that's the most in-demand job to have in the country right now. So I guess, what does that mean for the number of people who are trying to get into the program? Are you seeing an increase for people wanting to become software developers and looking for training, and maybe even employers asking you for help for upskilling their people?
We are. I'd like to get Jennifer's input on that. But what I would just add to that is there's a huge demand for a whole variety of skills within IT. Clearly, the hot areas are the ones that people tend to know about. The cloud, everybody's bringing everything and moving everything to the cloud. You also have AI, of course, artificial intelligence, which is going to be our future. And then you have automation, where everything is getting automated more quickly. And that's happening dramatically, actually. I don't know, Jennifer, do you have anything you may want to add to that?
The other thing that I would add is through the pandemic, we saw an increase in the number of career pivoters coming into the Dev 10 program. So people that had a completely different career, in some cases it was directly impacted by COVID, and they had to kind of rewrite their story. And so they find a program like Dev 10 and it gives them a new opportunity for a new path. And those are really exciting candidates for us because they bring a completely different, diverse background. Their life experience is very different than perhaps a college student coming out of an engineering program. So we saw a definite increase in that over the past year.
And Harley, want to ask you this. I'm told Genesis is looking to increase its workforce in the Milwaukee region. Can you share more details about this?
Yeah, we're hoping to just about double. We're now on or about 150, and our goal is to get to 300.
And
this year.
This in 2021. Yeah. And what positions are you looking to fill here?
Jennifer, I'll defer to you. She's got boots on the ground.
Right. Of that 300, we're looking to have, well over 1/3 of that be dedicated to Dev 10, and then the balance of that be dedicated to those more experienced hires. As Harley mentioned, Genesis10 has had a presence in the Milwaukee market since the company was started. So we'll continue to grow those more experienced positions that people need help with as well. Dev 10 is a nice blending of, we can start with that younger talent, but sometimes they need somebody with a little more experience, so we can bring that to the table as well.
Nick, just to give you one example of the demand, for every 6 jobs in Java, there's only one candidate, one person available. And for .NET, another skill set, is actually for every 10 jobs out there, there's only one person available.
Wow.
So there's a big need. So for people who are looking to grow or change their career path or move into something new, this would be really an important opportunity for all people because there's such a huge demand. In fact, there was a recent survey that said that 77% of all companies said that technology is going to be the primary factor in their ability to meet their business goals this year. So that just says everything.
I think we've all heard this before, that every company is a tech company now.
Right, it's true.
Whether you're banking or shipping or whatever, it's retail, you're a tech company.
Yeah.
I guess, what is it for you, the opportunity in 2021 with all this upskilling that needs to happen and reskilling that needs to happen? Are you just projecting for Genesis10 just a historic year, or just a year of a lot of growth?
Well, what we're finding is that, especially due to COVID, that a lot of companies felt that their disaster recovery plans didn't really work out well. So it's lessons learned, and they're looking at ways of addressing the mistakes and the challenges that COVID caused. And so what one could do with that is do work outside the office and do work in a remote area. So we have 7 locations like that called delivery centers, where we do work only in the United States, and we only employ Americans here, people who are legally allowed to work. So this way, it does many things. One, you focus on de-risk. When you have concentration work, which most companies have most of their IT work in their central headquarters or location. So that's a risk. Like in anything in life, putting a lot of eggs in one basket, as we all know, can lead to risk if you have an act of war, terrorism, employee sabotage, or another pandemic or such. So the notion of diversifying your work through various locations that are secure around the country is getting a lot of attention, and we have that to offer. It also mitigates risk, HR risk and co-employment risk. Someone trips and falls, claims sexual harassment, or if you have someone who's working for a long period of time, you could have the court say they're really an employee of the main end user of the services. So when those people do work at a remote location in our location, they don't have that risk because we're the ones managing the work. It's our people there. So because of co-employment risk or HR risk, That's another reason why they're looking to do work outside their central location and to do it remotely in different places around the United States through various delivery centers, as they're called.
Harley, you said something when I asked you why Milwaukee was an ideal location. You said Milwaukee is a tech hub. That is something that the city is trying to brand. They've created the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. But whenever there's a ranking that comes out, Milwaukee always tends to fall towards the bottom. I guess you rank it against Chicago and Minneapolis and Detroit. I'm not even trying to compare it to California. But for you to say that Milwaukee is a tech hub, I'm sure people listening will feel encouraged by that because they're trying so hard to make that happen. For you, I'm sure you've seen this across the country. What makes a successful hub for a city? I mean, you put the numbers, there's 75,000 or so tech-related workers in Milwaukee. But in order for a company for you to put that brand on them, what does it have to have in place? Are you looking at the number of companies and workers, or it's the growth? Is it the opportunity?
It's a great question, Nick, and I'd like to get what Jennifer's opinion on that too. But what I would say is we have the people, we have the resources. The challenge we have, and the Milwaukee Tech Hub is working with us collaboratively on this, is getting to Milwaukee's companies. It's never easy. You have companies that are just used to doing it the same way and resistant to change. Everybody's selling to them, so they have their guardians at the gate. So when you try to make an appointment to meet with the CIO, you find that you even remotely, you can't even do that. It becomes very difficult. So I think the biggest challenge we have is that the word is not out. I think if companies were to hear what we have to say and meet us, as Jennifer knows, when Jennifer meets with a company in Milwaukee, her success rate is extremely high because once they get to see what we have to offer and then they do their due diligence and drill down, they tend to be pretty impressed. And that's why our success is so high when we get an opportunity to make our presentation. But that's the challenge, is getting companies to meet with us. To answer your question, I see that as the only challenge. If we had more entree into companies in Milwaukee, we would meet our goals and exceed that pretty handily. The challenge is getting those companies to meet with us. That would be my view.
Yeah, and a few things that I'll add to that. So Harley's right. I mean, I will be honest, at the end of the day, this program solves a problem almost all of our customers have, but it solves it in a different way, and change is difficult. So they have to understand how it works. They have to understand the timing of it. So to Harley's point, if we get to the right people where there's pain because they can't fill their positions and they're not able to grow their teams, frankly, sometimes it's just managing attrition that they're trying to keep up with. This program helps them with that. The other thing that I wanted to add is the talent is there. We have been incredibly impressed with the candidates that have come into our program. And with the graduates. So there are some really impressive people in the Milwaukee community that just need different skills. They have all the other elements to it.
If I could jump into that, Jennifer, because again, going back to a good question, Nick, saying that I didn't see those surveys, but if Milwaukee is not doing as well as other places, and you have to compare pound to pound, right, between Milwaukee and Chicago. Chicago's bigger, so it's a distorted picture. But Milwaukee has a really strong employee base and well-educated and a very strong disciplined labor market. What I mean by that is these are people who want to work, have a good work ethic. We've gotten really very positive signals all the way around in our experience in Milwaukee, more than other cities, which we will not mention. So that's a comparison. I'm not just saying that because we're speaking to you in Milwaukee. That's really the case. And just to give validation to that, when I started Genesis10, Milwaukee was the city I did the most business with in the first year when I opened up. So it was with Johnson Controls and Johnson Wax and Northwestern Mutual. Right away, we found that, they were receptive to our message, and we did very well. Now, that was 20 years ago, it was a while ago. So we're redoubling our efforts here, but it has everything that we want. And it's in the right location. Bigger cities have other problems and challenges. Milwaukee is kind of like the right fit. It's a big city, but it's not so big where you have enormous competition, where the infrastructure is so stressed, where everybody's competing for the same talent. Milwaukee is a really good marketplace for us and for there to be huge growth. It's just a question of getting an opportunity to meet with potential clients.
And I'm sure with people able to work from anywhere, given remote working and how that's skyrocketing, I'm sure Genesis10 is going to have a long presence, prolonging presence in Milwaukee. So Harley and Jennifer, I want to thank you both for coming on this morning. Again, podcast comes out every Friday, MilwaukeeBusinessJournal.com, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.